Hello, now behind me I have a Volkswagen ID.5, but it's not just a normal ID.5, it's a GTX, which not only means it gets twin motors with this electric powertrain, but it means it's got 299 horsepower. Now Volkswagen claims it will do 314 miles, 0 to 60 in 6.3 seconds, but it also promises to handle and steer like a GT model from Volkswagen. So shall we put that to the test? The ID.5 we're testing today is a GTX Style, with the 77 kWh battery giving it 299 horsepower and 460 Nm of torque. With its mix of muscle and road presence, it's equivalent to the GTE and GTD models we know from elsewhere in Volkswagen's range. And with a 35-minute claimed rapid charge time and the ability to push electricity back into the grid, it could very well be the most compelling mix of functionality and fun in a GT badge Volkswagen yet. When it comes to the ID.5, surely going for the GTX is going to be a no-brainer, right? So to answer that question, we have come to some local country roads, and first things first, I've left the car in comfort mode with the suspension and everything set in its most relaxed setting. And yeah, it doesn't feel sporty or like anything GT or GTI or R related. It just feels, well, it feels like the ID.3 but much bigger basically. So for anyone familiar with that, that is a pretty plain and simple car. It doesn't have much character, but it's very practical, and I think immediately I can sense that this is just a bigger version of that. The interior, everything around me is ID.3, but just on a slightly bigger scale. But that's not necessarily going to be a bad thing for a buyer of an ID.5. You're going to want practicality and scale, family-sized interior, but with this model having 299 horsepower from a twin-motor electric setup, surely it's got to promise a little bit more than that. So I think very quickly I can tell you that the comfort mode is pretty standard, pretty normal. Rides okay, it's quite firm, feels it's 2.2 tons over bigger bumps, but actually rides pretty well on the smaller, more undulating stuff. But let me just whack it into sport mode. Now you can customize your settings, but I've just left the car to go into its default sport mode, and immediately I can feel the suspension is tensed up. There's a pitter-patter over smaller bumps. It doesn't feel enormously hunkered down at all. Actually, enormously is the wrong word. It doesn't feel hunkered down at all. There's definitely some pitch and roll to it. Still feels quite tall. But this is a bumpy road, and the car is definitely reacting quite quickly. Accelerator pedal reactivity is definitely quicker as well. All predictable things. Let's have a go at the power. So remember, this is 299 horsepower, Golf R territory, albeit with electric power. Foot down. Yeah, I mean, that's straight up to the unrestricted speed limit, so it definitely gets up and goes, but no drama, no character, no noise to go with it as well. And I'm surprised by that. I thought there'd be a bit of a sporty soundtrack, given that this is the sportier model. That's pretty much the norm in EVs now, but they haven't done that. Okay, let me now put it into individual mode, because then I can turn the suspension up to its very stiffest. There are so many dots on that line that allow you to adjust from comfort or even beyond comfort, and then beyond the sport mode that is set as default. And I've set the steering and the drive to sport. So this is now the most GTX of GTX ID.5s. And pedal to the carpet, again, doesn't feel dramatically different. I'm getting the impression that really this car is, the parameters of its operation are pretty narrow actually, but it is definitely stiffer. I'll definitely say that. There's nothing coming through the steering, nothing coming through the car itself to really signal that there is a sports machine beneath me, despite this thing genuinely being capable of a sub 6.5 second 0 to 62 time, or so Volkswagen claims. And handily, there is no one behind me, and we are now on an open stretch of roads. So let's do a launch, shall we? So brake pedal on, accelerator on. Oh, that peters out quite quick. So that was basically getting up to the legal speed limit there. You get off the line rapidly, as you probably heard, no slip at all. So I can see those on paper statistics being perfectly accurate, but it was not particularly exciting. How about a bend? Let's try it around the corner here. Yeah, lots of grip, no drama. But okay, all right, fair enough. Maybe I'm expecting too much from this model. This is just, let's just think about it how a lot of people think about it. This is just a nippier, slightly more aggressively styled, and slightly more braggable, to your mates at least, form of the ID.5. And when it comes to everything else in this car, all right, yeah, there's a lot to like. I mean, the interior now, you know, this is admittedly a car that's well over 50K in this specification. You're knocking on the door of 60K. We pay monthly now, most of us, for our cars, but still, this is a premium vehicle when it comes to the numbers. And it feels that way inside. There's leathers, there's a blue leather in this car against a red exterior paint job. But when it comes to the car I'm saying, oh yeah, it's nice. It looks good. Infotainment system and everything, getting used to this Volkswagen system, even if it isn't my favorite. Not getting used to these heater controls, the slidey touch sensitive stuff, still not a fan, but if you have to live with it, you do kind of get used to it. And when it comes to the space up front, it's a big car, it's spacious, it's nice. I mean, stick it in comfort mode where I think it's most natural, and it goes with the setting. But what about the motorway? I mean, this car inevitably is the sort of car that's going to spend a lot of time on the motorway. You might be a commuter, or maybe you're a family and you're going to be taking this car when you go on holiday or driving to the airport. There's a fair bit of road noise, but this is a coarse road. We're on the M40. Anyone who uses this road will know that it can have quite a rough surface, but there is a fair bit of road noise. I'm definitely having to speak with a slightly more elevated voice. No wind noise though. Given the size of this car and given the size of the wheels on this car, it's pretty refined, it's nice. It rides well, settles to a cruise at motorway speeds, like so easily. In fact, I'm barely touching the accelerator pedal. Claim to do 340 miles between charges, and given how little I'm touching the accelerator and how effortless this feels on the motorway, I don't think you're going to see that range tumbling when you get up to motorway speed. And the visibility actually is really good. These door mirrors are massive, and the visibility out the back, even though that rear window is fairly narrow, I can see right back. I can actually see the boot spoiler as well, which is quite fun. And the visibility forward, because I'm in an elevated position, I'm still quite low and comfortable in the car. I always go on about seating positions. It's really good in this car actually, because you can sit low on the floor with the battery beneath you. But the visibility ahead is good. I can see over the roof of the hatchback ahead of me. Door mirrors are great, as I mentioned. I can see right back, really wide width view across the motorway as well. So to cruise in this thing is going to be a doddle. All right, did the GTX blow my socks off? No, absolutely not, it didn't. But am I the target buyer for this car? Probably not. And actually, let me look at what things actually probably would matter to the people who are going to be interested in this car. I said the interior was a nice place to be, and there's a lot of space in here, some of which is removable. These cup holders here can be taken out and you can get more space down there. Lots of space down there, massive cubby holes as well. And if I just hop out the car, and then get into the back over here, there's so much space in this rear. I mean, seat ahead of me set how I like it, and this is enormous amounts of room. I mean, we know this is basically an ID.4, but with a slightly more swoopy roofline. But it's still so spacious in the back here. I've got loads of headroom above me, loads of room to the side. This middle seat is really big, and because there's no transmission tunnel, I've got all this space here as well. So 5 people in this car is going to be no problem whatsoever. All right, the middle seat is smaller, but it's very, very spacious. And I should say as well, this car has a panoramic roof as well, which means it feels really light and airy in here. And in the back, I know because we had a look earlier, you've also got a lot of room. I mean, this boot is really deep back here. You could easily get probably a family-size suitcase in this way, certainly this way, with some more space on top. There is a little bit of room under here. You've got a whole section on here. The cables are in there now, but there's no reason why you couldn't throw other stuff in there. And then beneath that, you've got another little hidden pocket down here. And look, straps on the sides here if you want to put stuff in. So it's a very practical offering. And while the GTX, and especially this ID.5 with this body line, is slightly less practical in body shape because you've got this swoopy line compared to the ID.4, there's still loads and loads of room on offer. Although, to be frank, that's true for the lesser models as well. You don't have to go for a GTX to get all of that room and those bits in the interior. You can go for a lesser model, or pay a few grand less, or even less, you know, 10 or 20 pound or whatever it is a week or a month, and get something that fundamentally offers you all of the practicality and usability and the looks of this one. You don't get the 299 horsepower headline figure, but as we saw in the car, it doesn't really excite anyway. I don't know. I think the GTX looks great, and I think it's got a lot to offer, but it's not really a GT model. I don't know. Let us know what you think in the comments. Do you agree? Would you take this GTX? Do you think it's worth it? Or would you go for a lesser one like I would? Let us know, and obviously do like the video, get subscribing to the channel as well. We're driving many more cars. In fact, I'm about to jump into another Volkswagen now, which will be a review coming soon.